we could call this meeting to order. March 7th, 2022 at 5:34 p.m. Public participation. Ann, do we have anyone tonight?
So Chris, I didn't hear from anyone but the people involved with Eric Sherman and the betterment.
Okay. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak? I guess I see a lot of faces here that I normally don't see. So I don't know if you're all here for the betterment or if we have some citizens here that would like to participate in public participation.
We're here for the betterment.
We're here for the betterment also.
Okay.
Betterment.
I just want to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. That's all. Okay. Well, I guess we could start. If no one else has anything to say, I guess we could start off with the betterment then.
All right, Mr. Chair, we're actually, yeah, I'm unmuted. There we go. So Eric Sherman from my office will give a quick presentation on kind of the process for the betterment.
Okay.
And what's being proposed. So he'll run through a quick PowerPoint and we can take questions after that from the commission. So
Great. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
Great, great. Can you share your screen? I think I lifted it.
Yes. Hold on a second. Hi, Elena.
Hi, Eric.
Oh.
There are many ways to help Ukraine and a lot of ideas on our website.
All right. Does that look good?
Yes, I can see it.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep, it's coming through.
All right. As we mentioned before, most of the residents here tonight are because they requested that the town of Wakefield DPW takes a look at their private road, Marla Lane, for a roadway betterment improvement project through the town. Marla Lane is located off of Lowell Street, just a few doors down from the Forest Glade Cemetery. If you look at that locus plan in front of you, the cemetery is just above the highlighted Marla Lane to the north. So as as I've mentioned to the residents in the past, we've had a couple of meetings. Because they live on a private way, the town's bylaw says that in order to have the private way improved, they need to go through this process for betterments because bylaw says so. But anyways, I put the bylaw here forward for everybody. As you can see, we need to have a majority of the butters be in favor of doing something to have the town look at it. And I'm going to go forward with what the actual process is for getting this project from beginning to end. So as mentioned before, step one is the residents approached me, Mr. Marino, started this process over at 5 Marla Lane, where they filled out a petition to have the DPW engineering department take a look at Marla Lane for improvements. The majority of the abutters agreed and said we should take a look at this road, see what we can do to have it improved. The abutters I've met with since then, I got what their concerns were and came up with a scope of work and a cost estimate, which I'll get to in a little bit, for how we can improve Marla Lane. Following tonight's presentation, the hope is that the advisory board will also approve of this project. And then if the advisory board is in favor of it, then we can move forward for an approval to proceed, where it'll end up going to town council. With their approval, it'll become a warrant article at this spring town meeting in May. Part of the process that they'll be voting for ultimately will be whether or not they're in favor of the project, the time frame, whether it's 5 years, 20 years, and if they'd like to do this broken out by frontage of their property and by equal shares. There are currently 8 abutters to Marla Lane, 6 with Marla Lane addresses, and there are 2 properties on the corner, 494 Lowell Street and 500 Lowell Street, that are also abut the way. As mentioned, if it gets approved through the advisory board. Everybody's on board for doing this project. It goes to town meeting, becomes an article in which the entire town will vote whether or not we should move forward with this project. Basically the engineering department would be the one that would what's the word I'm looking for? Sponsor the article at town meeting. If everybody at town meeting, or they get at least the majority vote, it becomes an actual project, and then the estimate will get recorded at the registry of deeds. As I've mentioned to the residents before, in the event that they sell their property, move, hit the lottery or whatnot, and end up leaving Wakefield prior to the project being completed, it can still be found through a title search with the property. That's why we record this with the registry of deeds. It's just an estimate that gets recorded to kind of give everybody an idea of what the project is going to cost. We have that recorded within 120 days of town meeting. And then it actually goes first to town council, they sign off, and then following that, it gets recorded at the registry of deeds. That then allows us to get our construction funds moving forward so we can build this project. Typically, the time frame of our construction is with our annual roadway improvement projects. We roll in Marla Lane with whatever other streets we're doing at the same time so that we can put it out for public bidding. Where Marla Lane is only approximately 600 linear feet, and it's only about 24 to 30 feet wide. It's not that big of a street. So we would actually do this with similar work in town when we're doing our, 3 miles or so of roadway paving that we're going to do for that fiscal year. And as mentioned before, we'd be the ones that would be the general contractor for it. We'd handle everything from start to finish. And then once the project is completed, we end up with a final cost. That final cost of the project will then be brought back to town council to say, this is what our original estimate was. This is what we truly spent. The intention is to have that be less than what was the estimate at the beginning. Town council signs off that the project has been complete and everything's been paid for to all our contractors. They sign what's called a certification to assessors. I then would record that with the registry of deeds, similar to how a certificate of completion would follow in order of conditions if you were doing a conservation project. That certification ends up being the final amount that's owed. That again falls through on a title search, and I move the information to the assessor's office, and then they reach out to all the residents to make arrangements for when payments would begin and the breakdown and whatnot. So as I mentioned before, we received a petition from the abutters. The original petition, I had 7 out of the 8 abutters sign off that they're interested in looking at the project. Since most of the street was in favor of doing something, we started taking a look at Marla Lane. On this sketch here, the 7 yellow properties are the ones that signed it. The green property at the bottom didn't sign the original petition. However, I've spoken with the homeowners since then. They're completely up to date on the project. So I think at this point, we're basically at 8 out of 8, know what's going on and at least have an idea about the project. And well, I know they're here tonight, so. Just to kind of show what Marla Lane looks like. These pictures I took before the winter, just so we could have the road visible. This is looking from Lowell Street. As I mentioned before, it's approximately a 600-foot dead-end street. As part of the project, we'll be upgrading here at the intersection the handicap ramps on the corners, as we do with all our projects. On the left side there at the corner, that along that white picket fence, and then on the right side where the you can see the granite curbing, that'll also be upgraded with concrete handicap ramps and detectable warning panels. The rest of Marla Lane won't have any granite associated with it. This kind of shows the roadway conditions along Marla Lane. It's a very flat street. It does have some existing sidewalks that are sort of delineated, as you can see as you move down the road. There's some edging where the sidewalks you can kind of see are there, but not as much pronounced. We're looking as part of the project to kind of make those a little bit more enhanced. You can see all the alligatoring down the roadway and the utility poles along the edge. There's some more shots that show the existing sidewalk. There's currently no edging between the sidewalk and the road. And as I mentioned before, everything out there is relatively flat. So what we're proposing to do on this project, as we're looking to obviously dig up and repave the whole street, but we're looking to improve these sidewalks, try to protect the edging of the road as well to actually give it some definition. And this sort of shows the end of the cul-de-sac towards the back half of the street. That's house number 9 right there. And that's really it. So as I mentioned, for scope of work, we're looking to pave about 24 feet wide on this roadway. We're looking to completely reclaim the street where we're going to dig it down to dirt, dig it down and build it back up with good base material and brand new asphalt. We typically do our asphalt in 2 layers. In this case, we'll put down a 2-inch section of binder course and then 1.5 inches of top to finish it off. As I mentioned before, we'll install 2 curb ramps at the corner. That'll be vertical granite curbing. There's already some granite on one side of the street. If you're facing the roadway, it's on the right by 500 at 494. We'll adjust the granite curbing over there, along with those cast iron detectable warning panels. The asphalt sidewalk that I showed before, we're going to look to replace that as well. There's approximately 400 feet of asphalt sidewalk on the street. So we'll dig that up and replace it. And then we're going to put in an edging to better define where the sidewalk is versus the road. From talking with the residents, they like the idea of being able to pull off to the side and the idea of parking out there as well. So I want to make sure I still make it something that's kind of somewhat mountable so that they can pull up on the side of the street and be able to park as need be, whether it's for themselves or for visitors moving forward. I also like to see that by putting that edging there, we can hopefully try to protect those utility poles on the left side of the street a little bit as well, because right now they're just kind of out there in the open. I also noticed that down by the corner towards 494 Lowell Street, there's a little bit of a drainage issue over there, so I'd like to try to fix the drainage over there. So I'm proposing we put in some catch basins and a manhole with the associated piping to try to get the water off of Marla and into the drain system into Lowell Street.
Is that it, Eric?
So that's it really for the scope of work. The last 2 slides I have show a breakdown of the residents were concerned about the difference between frontage cost and equal shares. So the next 2 slides I have just give a breakdown of the properties and what the contributions would be from each homeowner based on those 2 options. So I don't know if you want me to go through that first or be better to take questions first.
Why don't we show it and then we can take questions and talk about it. Might as well show it.
Okay. So the next one is if you were to break it up by frontage. As you can see, I have all 8 properties on here, along with their property information, book and page, the legal reference of when it was last recorded, and then what their frontage is, basically how much of their property abuts Marla Lane as per their deed. And it shows then the second to last column what their percentage would be. And as you can see, no surprise, the 2 at the corners have the largest percentage of property, where they kind of take the corner wrap into the street. That's pretty common in a lot of these cul-de-sacs, ranging anywhere from about 9.5% to almost double at 18%. And then the other option would be to do it by equal shares, which everybody would be at 12.5%. Oops, everyone would be at 12.5%, splitting the cost 8 ways. And again, this would be broken out over a number of years. The project doesn't actually go in, the cost doesn't actually go into effect until the project has been completed and we have a final actual number. This is just based on our estimated values, based on the scope of work right now and what the cost of everything is as of today.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate it.
No problem, Chris.
Certainly some good info. Joe or Ann, did you want to start with particular addresses of who we want to speak? Or I don't know if people signed in or signed up before, or we can take random questions. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure everyone gets to voice their opinion. That's all.
Yeah, we didn't have a sign up sheet to start, so we can go with whoever wants to go first, I guess.
Okay, and just for some of the people that aren't familiar with Zoom, some of you are muted just because of background noise when someone was presenting. So if you want to speak first, just raise your hand and we can make sure you're unmuted. So I'll just go down the. Is Julio present with us?
Yes, we're here. This is the Vaca family.
How you doing? If you could identify yourself and your address, and if you'd like to say anything or speak, you're more than welcome to.
Yes, so my wife and I, Julio and Marisol, we live at 500 Lowell Street, and we are one of the homes at the entrance. We did not sign this original document that was circulated with my neighbors. So that's me, actually. That's us. As far as any questions, is there any breakdown on the $160,000 that we can see parts, labor, all of that? Because I know that's one number.
Ian or Joe?
That's an Eric question.
I mean, that number is kind of based on, I mean, it's based on what our current bids go for reclaiming the roadway, the sidewalks. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of items all broken down. I'm just trying to keep it simple for the presentation, I guess.
I mean, it's something we can provide for sure, if
Yeah.
that's something you'd like to see. But, basically it's, we have a, we essentially have a process for how we bid each of these roads programs and projects within that program. So we've followed that process. So these are the current numbers that we have today, with the small escalation included for some of the asphalt increases that we're seeing right now with oil prices going up. So we can provide that to you if you want to see that separately, but not something we have necessarily available to throw up on the screen.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, that would be nice if that can be shared with the neighbors here. My other question is the $160,000. Is that just the principal? Is going to be principal and interest?
That's
That is-
principal.
That's all.
Yep, that's principal. And so typically what happens with the betterments is we look at a couple of options. One would be if we look to bond it, but with the cost of this project being only 160,000, we would probably use that out of free cash and not actually borrow it. So the interest rate wouldn't be, you wouldn't be paying the interest rate for the borrowing component of it.
Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
And do you know what it would be? The interest rate?
Hold on 1 second. Mr. Vaca, are you all set for questions?
We might have some, but not right now.
I guess for now we're set, but yes, we may have other questions as we start,
Okay,
thinking.
well, we can come back to you. It's not a problem. Is anyone next that would like to speak? If you could raise your hand, please. I see Janet. Hold on, you're muted, so we just got to unmute you. There you go. If you could just identify yourself and your address, that would be great.
Janet Bringola, 9 Marla Lane at the end. And if you notice the photography, the picture at the end, there is no sidewalk in front of my property. The big tree in front of our house destroyed the sidewalk years ago. So we got rid of the macadam and put in ground cover. The tree roots have also damaged significantly the driveway and the street in front of where the sidewalk was. how do you deal with this in Wakefield when you try to replace something like this? Then, it's my feeling that the tree, unless it's taken down, is just going to continue spreading its lovely roots everywhere and, destroying any macadam that's out there.
So typically for trees that are in rows that we're looking to reclaim, we would look to dig around the roots and cut those so that they don't continue to grow. So it's kind of like, think of it like limbing your tree. It's the same idea so that it doesn't harm the tree. If the request is to remove it, I mean, there's a cost to that that we can obviously incorporate into the project, if that's what the ask is.
No, I don't want to remove it. It's like it shades the whole house in the summer. It's a
Good.
southern exposure.
Sure.
But I was wondering if you had success taking that many roots out of a large specimen like that. Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, we do it, we run into it a lot. So, I mean, we run into it for utility projects too. We run into it for roads projects, when we're replacing curb, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, we can also look to modify the road in that area and pull it back a little bit if that's what you'd prefer to see. I mean, both of those are options, so.
Okay.
Could I just ask a question? Is the tree you're referring to on the Lowell Street side or on the Marlow Lane side?
It's at the end of Milam Lane. It's a huge locust tree.
Okay, thank you.
Was that all, Janet? Did you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, no problem. Who would like to speak next, please? I see a hand. There you go. I'm asking you to unmute there. Linda. Yep, we can hear you. If you could state your name and your address, that would be great.
Yeah, we're Andy and Linda Sluice. We're on the corner, 494 Lowell. Earlier, you had mentioned handicap ramps on the corners with granite curbing, but on my side of Lowell Street, there is no sidewalk. So am I to think that there's going to be a radius granite curb just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere? Unless you're planning on putting a sidewalk in front of my house, which I wouldn't object to, but that's a different project, I imagine.
No, the handicap ramps are there for basically connecting the sidewalk through Lowell. And at some point, we will be extending the sidewalk on Lowell. So this is preparing for that. So
this is just preparing for that. Okay.
Preparing for that, yeah. And anytime we do any betterment, we always include the curb ramps as part of it. So we're mandated by the ADA law to install those curb ramps at each of these intersections. So as soon as we touch the pavement in front of it, we're required to do it. We know we're going to plan to do the next stretch, so we're going to add that handicap ramp at the same time.
I only hope it's not an invitation to a sidewalk plow, because we went through that years ago and that didn't work out well. They plowed up my yard. But I understand that.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
I also have a tree just inside my property line that's heaving up my walkway from the gate to the back door, which Jana, you can appreciate that, except mine is bricks and they're starting to pop up, but it's also encroached out onto the sidewalk and made a big hump. You would come right up to my fence and stop with the roots, or could you go in a couple of feet more just to get rid of that root? So that the sidewalk can be level.
I don't think it's the same.
Well, that's a separate project down the road, so we can talk about that when we look to.
No, I'm talking about my gate on Marla Lane.
Oh, okay.
I have a side gate and that fence.
Well, we'd be looking to raise up the sidewalk a little bit.
Yes.
So that would potentially eliminate, I have to look at the route itself to see if we have to cut it or if we're going to be above it and it's not going to cause an issue to it. I'd have to look at that, but.
I'm going to have to call the guy that did my walkway to come in and lift up those bricks, get rid of the roots there so I can level it. But that's inside my yard.
No, we typically include that as part of our work because we're changing the roadway. So that has been incorporated into it. So, you know, if we're doing any road, even if we rather yet not do it in the right of way, but again, this is a private way and you guys are all funding it. So, you know, we would typically just include anything we have to do to blend in the driveways or walkways. That's all included as part of this price.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, Bill brought up a good point. That one thing I didn't mention is as we're replacing and repairing the sidewalk along Marlow Lane, we end up cutting across your driveway aprons. We'll cut across them and blend it all back together so you don't have a weird step coming from your driveway to meet the street. So we'll, you know, that's also included as in there because I know I'm gonna have to cross all those aprons and we might have to make adjustments to make it all still, you know, fly. So.
Great.
Thank you. Who else did we have here? Peg, did you want to speak as well? If you could identify yourself and your address.
Thank you. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could just state your name and your address.
Oh, okay. I'm Peggy Feith. I'm at 8 Mile Lane. And are they gonna put any fire hydrants on the street? Or couldn't they do that?
Eric, you want to take that one?
At the time, we weren't doing any water improvements as part of this project. So we weren't intending on putting a hydrant at the end of the street. There is one across the street from Marlow Lane.
Right on Lowell Street.
Yeah, right on Lowell Street when you head towards, I believe that's Thorndike. There's a hydrant right there. So kind of across the street from 500 Lowell, there's a fire hydrant right there. But at this time, we weren't intending to do any water main improvements, including a hydrant or services work.
Okay, and the other thing is, he was talking about the principal, but you said, what is the interest rate gonna be?
The interest rate, we typically run with the 4% as our current, you know, our current plan. Right now we're getting better interest rates than that. But again, we're not, because of the cost of this, we can absorb it through the free cash that we have. At least that's what we've done for similar sized projects. We've had a couple of other betterments in the last 2 years that were all done through our free cash that's available. So essentially what you'll be doing is just paying the town back into our free cash account.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Did I miss anybody? I think I got some others down here. Sorry. Hold on. I see some, any other hands there? I see one. There you go. I'm asking you to unmute. I'm probably asking you. I think.
I unmuted.
Yep, you're good. If you could just
Okay.
state your name and your address, please.
My name is James Marino, 5 Marlow Lane. I know you mentioned we're gonna have a small little rise higher than what we have on our sidewalks now, our so-called sidewalks.
Yeah.
Will it just be a little rise? Are you putting in like a wedge of a curb? Are you going to, what it's going to be there? Is it just gonna meet the road itself as a curve? As a
So-
little increase?
Yeah, so it would be bituminous is what we would use. So we looked at going with a slope granite edging, but the cost was more. So I guess in one of the neighborhood meetings, it was determined that they'd rather save the dollars on that. So what we would do is probably end up painting the curb to be white so that you'd see the delineation between the sidewalk and the roadway. And then that would do it. But we would also blend it back down at each of the driveways because it's so flat. So really, this would be, we'd have a transition at each driveway to raise it back up. But I'm thinking this is only about 3 inches of reveal. That's all we can really.
Okay,
So
okay.
This isn't gonna be like a full 6-inch curb, no. And you would
Yeah,
still be
so-
able to mount where the sidewalks are to park, because that was something that the neighborhood wanted to see.
Yeah. Okay, so it would just rise up about 3 inches, 3-inch curve then, like a berm, 3-inch
Yep,
berm,
exactly.
something like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And it would have a little pitch to it, so it wouldn't be straight up, so your tire would hit it. It would be at an angle, so you could
Yeah,
actually.
at an angle or a curve, like a berm, like a curved
Yeah, it's gonna be
berm.
more like a berm, exactly.
Yep.
A Cape Cod berm look to it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I know I saw some others. Hold on. Let's see. Anyone else that would like to speak? I see, is there a Richard Smith or Carolyn Wheaton? Any?
This is Carolyn. I have no questions at this time.
And what was your address, please?
7 Marla Lane.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And who else? I think I missed one more. There was Richard Smith. Would you like to say anything? I think you're muted. He's mute. You're muted.
It all played.
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Yep, we can hear you. How you doing? What's your name and address, please?
Richard Smith, 6 Mile Lane. I'm curious if it's possible to have a gas pipe come down.
We don't actually handle that aspect, so you'd have to, the neighborhood would have to talk to the Wakefield Gas and Light Department and see if that's something they want to do. Typically, they're not extending right now because they're mandated by the state to repair their existing pipes.
Okay,
So it would be a cost to the neighborhood to actually have that run in. You'd have to bear that cost. But
Right.
you reach out to the gas and light department to see the availability and possibility of that happening. If that's something the neighborhood wants, then we would push off the timing of the work, obviously. So, we could still move forward with the betterment at town meeting in the spring here. But realistically, we wouldn't be paving till next year.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Was there anyone else that had any comments or questions?
And Chris,
Yeah, go ahead.
Andy Sleuth asks, do you have maybe an example of a street that's had this done recently? So we could maybe drive by and take a look?
Eric
Yeah.
might be able to answer that.
We have a couple. So we did Flanders Lane recently. Unfortunately, there was a water main break on it. So that might not be the best example of one you want to go with, but that was recently done. And then we also have, is it Walton Lane that's going on right now? But that
That
hasn't
hasn't been done yet.
That hasn't been done yet. So what about other ones, Eric, before I
We've
was?
other completed betterments we have in town. Over off of Preston Street, there's a Zarian Court. That's a very narrow street. A few roads down from the 3 Cs. That one we did a few years ago. We did Blossom Street, which is also kind of near Preston, off of Newhall and Water. We did a betterment over on Cooper Street Extension, kind of near Crystal Street. And we've also done off of Gould Street. We did what's the street called?
Highland.
Oh, Highland. Thanks, Joe. We also did Highland off of Gould Street. Of those streets, Highland there was no sidewalks on that street. There was just some curbing at the down at the main road. So I don't know if that's really as applicable as this one.
Eric, what about Mount Pleasant?
Oh, I'm sorry. And we also did Mount Pleasant Street over by off of Nahant Street. That's probably been the biggest one we've done. That was Mount Pleasant Street up the hill and included Everett Street as well. That had about 20 plus houses on that one. That was a pretty big betterment. that we
Yeah.
did.
That's a lot.
Right.
So we've also done Jerry Lane off of Greenwood. Those are all kind of within the last so many years. Fairmount Terrace we did, that was a bit older. So around town, we've kind of jumped around town. It's really whatever people reach out to us.
Sure.
This is how they get picked.
All right, well, we'll take a cruise next time we have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
see
question from 500 Lowell Street.
Yep. Let's see. Yes, I see the hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. So this is a question for William and for Eric.
Yes.
Guys, given the scope of the project, dimensions, size, and pricing, is a project of this magnitude eligible for state or local subsidiary funding, I guess, to lessen the burden on those living on this neighborhood?
No,
Is that such a thing?
No, unfortunately, there's not. So when we get our state aid, we have to use it, we use it on public roads. So it's for public and accepted streets. That's what we use for our state, our state funding that we get. And then for public funding, it's the same situation. So to be honest with you, some communities don't even go to the level that Wakefield does to actually better the streets and actually repave the entire thing. They typically do much smaller repairs, and they would require you folks to do it yourselves if you were doing something larger. So I would say you're getting a benefit with the way Wakefield handles it, and has, obviously our expertise to go out and manage the project and design it and do all of that. So unfortunately, there's not an option to fund it another way. Alternatively, the neighborhood could look to go and fund the construction themselves so that you don't have to pay prevailing wage. That'll have some savings if that's what you choose to do. But ultimately, someone would have to champion it, manage the contractor and the contract. So if someone's geared up to do that, you could go that approach as well.
Got it. A follow-up question to that. You mentioned about the benefits of going with the town. So I think Eric mentioned when he was here visiting us that the current situation as far as maintaining our public way is the town, if there's a pothole or something like that, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, I heard you say that the town takes care of that today. Moving forward, if we were to repave everything, how does the maintenance would work? Would that be on all of us, or is that something that would be part of the project? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So what I would recommend is that you look, as soon as you start to see some cracking, to hire a crack ceiling person to come in and take care of that yourselves. But if there is a blowout in one section, similar to what you have in different areas on the road today, we would come in and fix that. Reason we do it is so that we can provide emergency services to you and our trash and recycling collection. So that's why we do it. Typically what would happen in other communities is that we would be going through this betterment process to do some of the potholes. That's what they typically do in most communities. But ultimately you're on a private road, so it's your cost to maintain it.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Is there anyone else that had any questions or comments? I don't see any other faces or hands going up, I don't think. Well, I think, thank you, everyone. Oh, got one more. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mr.
I know
Chair.
we have a problem with the snow plows, and I'm just worried about this curbs all around here getting dug up on the first snow plow. No curb. I mean, can we do it without curbs? Can we take a vote about having curbs? No,
You certainly can.
there's no
Your
curb.
street.
Gonna be
Great, great.
I mean, it sounds like the neighborhood has a little bit of disagreement on this. I mean, typically at this point today, we're looking to get a vote from the neighborhood. We take a roll call vote as to, if we have a majority that wants to do the project as laid out. And then we would also look for the advisory board to vote to move it to the town council. So obviously with the time frame that we're looking at right now for town meeting in May, that, we would have to move this along, or at least have it done by April, I believe, right? When does the warrant close, folks?
I think it's end of March 31st or right around April 1st, thereabouts.
Right, so
Yeah.
yes, we're really under the gun right now to get this through. So otherwise we'd have to wait till the following town meeting, which is not the fall. We have to wait till the spring town meeting in 2023 if we were to not have consensus tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I had a question, Eric. Towards the end there of your presentation, you had some slides about the shares of divvying up the money shares of who's spending what. Is the percentages, are the neighbors deciding on how it's getting split up?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, that's all we can know.
they could either vote whether they want to do it by their frontage on Marla, or they vote whether they want to do it by equal shares. So I
Okay.
kind of gave a little breakdown so you could kind of see the difference between what your property would be equally be 12.5%. So if you're above or below the 12.5.
Okay, I just
Right.
wanted to make sure what we're had to vote on.
And then we also look for them to vote on the time payback period. So the bylaw currently says 5 years, but we have moved to have it as a 20-year payback, and that's happened for the last few. To give you an
Yeah,
idea of what
Lane
your
did that.
yeah, we did for the last 3 that I've been here for, and then that's kind of been the practice over the last, I would say, probably the last 10 plus years. So we would look to have that. So we have to vote on the payback period and the cost share, and then whether everyone's in favor. So that's basically what we're looking to get done as the business tonight, Mr.
And
Chair.
as
Can we-
always, I believe you're allowed to pay back early if you want. So you could
Of course.
do the 20 years and then decide you wanted to pay it off sooner. You can do that as well.
You
So
could do
can you
that
just-
individually?
On the payback,
Yes.
the vote would be for, let's say for argument's sake, you voted for 20 years, but individually you wanted to pay it off earlier than that. You could do that individually if you wanted.
Good.
So can you just clarify, what is it that the committee votes on versus what is it that the neighbors vote on?
Yep. So the neighbors are voting on basically, an agreement on what they're looking to for the project, that they have agreement that they want to move forward with it, what their payback period is, and how they want to divvy up the cost of it. Okay. And then the advisory board is essentially approving what the neighbors have, agreed to the town council. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're
Yeah,
voting it to move it to the council to add to the warrant.
And what's the required vote for an affirmative vote? Is it just a majority
Simple
or
majority.
simple majority?
Simple majority. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can we see the breakdown of the frontage again?
Eric, share that if you could. There you go.
Where'd it go?
It's coming.
Can you see that?
I see it, thank you. Well,
Yep, no problem.
as far as one vote, I see that we're broken up. There's 4 that are in the 60s and the corner homes are in the hundreds. It doesn't matter which way I go because it's the same amount of money. It's the same amount of money. 5 and 6 are the same amount of money within $500 of everybody going. Equal shares of $500 more. I mean, individual shares of $500 more, equal shares of $500 less, the same as Dick. So I don't care which way everybody votes on that. It doesn't particularly do anything to me either way. If the majority says they would like to do it at equal shares, I don't have a problem. Naturally, whatever they think is fair is fine with me. It doesn't seem to hurt me one way or the other or hinder anything. I know there's a lot of differences, like $5,000 difference between the ones who have the smaller frontage than the ones that are on the corners. I understand that's a lot more. I'm not adverse to going equal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I vote whatever the majority wants. There's no big difference for what I have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, any comments, questions?
If the residents are done commenting, I just want to give sort of a general comment on the project and the engineering that's been done to date, and just express how pleased I am to see some of the items. I think the last betterment that we had was probably 2+ years ago. It was certainly in person, so it was before COVID. And I know at that time, some bugs were still being worked out in terms of the requirements on the handicap ramps and how sidewalks and the like were being treated. And I think it's fantastic that this project includes the ramps, includes better delineating the sidewalks from the street. I, as a member of the board, I'm fully in support of that separation and that vertical separation on the sidewalk to make it a little safer for somebody walking on the sidewalk. I think every time we touch a street in Wakefield, whether it's public or private through the betterments, these are the improvements that should absolutely be made. And especially in this case, also where the utility poles are like in the middle of the road, with the way it's flat from the sidewalk, from the street to the back of sidewalk right now. So I'm just really happy to see all the same considerations that we would make on a public way also being applied to this project, and just wanted to commend the design group for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question too. Which way did most of the other projects go when people voted whether to do it on frontage or whether by the number of lots? What's the prevailing mood of the town?
For the previous two, that was equal shares.
Okay.
Yep. At least the ones I've been involved with. Eric, you have more history, obviously, with it.
Most of the ones I've done have gone more towards equal shares. But again, it all depends on the neighborhood. Every street's a little different. How all the neighbors get along is a little different as well.
Yep.
So do we
all
need,
have to agree? Do we all have to agree on equal or equal shares?
Simple majority. Simple
Majority.
Majority.
Just a simple
And do we all
majority.
agree? And what about the time, 5 or 20?
Simple majority. Yep.
Is that individual?
I mean, most of the time, no, that's as a vote for the whole group. So typically folks want to go with the 20 because it's a longer payback period and it's a little bit less of a financial burden per year. So that's essentially your choice. I mean, if somebody wants to propose which route and then we can go with a roll call vote of the abutters, that would probably be the easiest way to do this.
Well, because he can pay it off in 5 if he wants to anyway.
But if you're planning on
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, did you, was there any other comments from anybody? Did we want to have the neighbors take a roll call vote? Is that what we're going to do? And then whatever they decide, we can vote on it?
Exactly. That's just typically how we do it. So do we want to propose equal shares at 20 years?
Yes.
Right.
The
Wanna go-
people, the
you want a roll
people
call
with the
vote?
most- the people who have the longest abutting area aren't the ones who use the road.
Right.
You know, it's.
Well, in this case, actually, I believe all properties, I believe, have driveway access on Marlow Lane,
Correct.
I believe.
Yes, we do, but we don't drive all the way, generally drive all the way down and use, the cul-de-sac part of it.
That's true, and that's one of the reasons residents have made in the past to argue for equal shares, is they say, this might be how much of the road I have for frontage, but this is how much of the road I drive. Like I said, every street's a little different. If you guys wanted to do equal shares, that's completely up to you. If you wanted to do frontage, that's up to you as well. So
I think the only people that are going to be paying, we know the two in the corner are going to be paying a lot less with equal shares, but it's going to be taken up by the people in the middle, 7, 8, and 9, and 20. How do they feel about equal shares? Because they're going to incorporate a little, almost $5,000 more.
Yeah, do you want us to? Let's,
Did everybody hear me?
yeah.
Yeah, I heard you, Jim.
Did Bill, Eric, do you want to just go by the address we have in the screen in front of us, 5 Marla Lane, and go to each resident? And, or how do you want to do the vote? What do we,
That sounds reasonable.
so everyone can follow as we go here.
What?
Yeah, so do it as a roll call vote.
Okay, so let's start with 5 Marla Lane.
Okay,
Jim Marino.
all right, I have already given my opinion on that. Actually, I don't care which way it goes. All right, for the sake of argument, I say equal shares.
And over 20 years or 5 years?
Oh, 20 years.
Okay, equal shares, 20 years.
Okay. 6 Marla Lane. Richard Smith.
Same as Jim, 20 years equal shares, although I am not against changing that equal shares if need be.
Okay.
Exactly.
7 Marla Lane.
Carolyn Wheaton, 7 Mile Lane. Wouldn't we be starting with the initial vote of approving or not approving the project in general?
You can vote right now to say you're not supportive of either one.
Okay, I see. Okay. So my vote is no.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Can I just ask, Chris, if we're now voting on yes or no on the project, I think we should probably take that up first.
Yeah.
Because then the folks who, if the project passes, the folks who voted no probably will want to weigh in on the frontage or
Sure.
equal shares and.
However they want to do it is fine.
Yeah. vote
We
on
just
yes
haven't
or
done
no.
roll call on a meeting before, so that's why.
Okay,
Let's vote yes or no on the project first and then come back around and vote on the.
Yeah, that'll only take a minute.
okay.
Sure, let's start over. Let's start with 5 Marla Lane.
I'm pro for the project, yes.
Yes. 6 Marla Lane.
Yes, for the project.
7 Marla Lane.
No for the project.
Yeah, was that a yes or a no? Sorry.
No for the project.
Okay. 8 Marla Lane.
Yes, for the project.
Okay. And 9 Marla Lane. There isn't someone here, so. 9 Marla Lane.
She's
Janet,
on mute.
That's why.
It's on mute.
Hold on, I didn't see her. Where is she?
Okay, you got me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote yes on the project.
Yes, okay. 10 Marla Lane.
She is not here.
Absent.
So assume that as a no vote.
Okay.
I changed my vote.
And 494 Lowell Street.
we're a yes.
Okay. And 500 Lowell Street.
We are a no.
All right, so I got 5-3, so motion passes. Let's roll back through on equal shares in,
Yep.
So I say we start with equal shares at a 20-year payback, because that's where the first two folks went.
Sure. 5 Marla Lane, Jim Marino.
This is a tough one. I say individual for 20 years.
So
So
you mean the
just
frontage?
Frontage?
Yeah, just go with what the frontage is. It doesn't matter which way it goes for me because it's only $500 difference whether it's equal or not. So it's kind of unfair for me to go one way or the other. Because there's only $500 difference for people who are there, number 8 and 9. They're the ones that have to pay a lot more, and so does 494. So if
We can
I'd
come
have to
back.
vote something, I'll just vote amount of frontage.
Okay, so frontage. Okay, and 6 Marla Lane.
20 years and frontage.
That was 6.
Okay, that was 6 Marla and 7 Marla Lane. Carolyn Wheaton.
Yes, yep, Carolyn. 20 years and I don't know what to say. Frontage, I guess frontage.
Okay.
And 8 Marla Lane.
Frontage, 20 years.
Okay.
Okay.
9.
9 Marla Lane.
Equal shares for 20 years.
Okay.
Okay. 10 Marla Lane. That was were they absent?
Yes.
So they had no.
Yes.
Marla, right?
Never know, but they would weigh in on how they want to pay.
Okay.
Because it did pass to be done, so.
Okay. 494 Lowell Street.
We say equal shares,
20 years,
20 years.
500.
Equal shares,
Equal chairs, yeah.
20 years.
Yep.
Let me repeat that. Equal shares, 20 years.
Okay.
All right, so the only one I missed was 10. How did 10 vote?
10's absent.
10's
Yeah.
absent.
Absent. So we have, for the folks that are here, I think, so how do we want to handle this? Do we want to go with I mean, if we do the
20 years is definitely that past that part. It's the
Yep, and it's 4-3, it's 4-3 frontage to equal shares for the folks that are here.
Common sense is gonna go for the cheaper one, bet.
I mean, looking at number 10,
Yeah, that's exactly.
I would assume that it would be a
Frontage.
frontage for them, considering they're gonna save money, so.
Correct.
All right. So 4-3, yes to no, and then, I'm sorry, 4, yeah, it was a 4-3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we got 4-3 for frontage. So we would move this forward to the council as a base it on the frontage at 20 years, if the advisory board wants to move that forward. based on today.
Excuse me, can I make a comment? This is Marisol Goncalves at 500 Lowell Street.
Sure.
Sure, I just wanted to make a point, how you mentioned that everybody got together and bring the project up front, initially by Marla Lane. Then the corner lots have to be brought in with the project later on, us specifically. I just want to make sure that, you know, the history is being that everybody says is a share, is everybody equal. And the vote is basically not in our favor. We are not in the financial situation to be taking this on. So I just wanted to make a point that it's something that we didn't vote because of that reason. And we are taking on a very big frontage on these projects. So I just honestly, and given as our neighbor in 494 mentioned it, we don't use the street the way that everybody else does. So we wanted to maybe make a consideration by everybody, you know, or what the vote is being done.
Thank you.
This is Carolyn at 7 Marla. Could I just ask for clarification what the vote totals were for frontage versus equal?
Sure. So we had 5 yes, for frontage, it was 4-3.
You're gonna have a cold dinner.
the frontage.
For frontage, it
Four
was
votes.
4 votes for, 3 votes again to go equal shares. 4 votes to go frontage. And for the
Okay,
yes,
and
no vote, we had 5 yeses and 3 nos because we assume that the person that's not here voted no.
okay, I've got that, but on the 4-3 vote, that leaves a total of 7.
It does. She's not here to vote, so we wouldn't know which way she's going to go. We assume, if you want to assume the frontage, because it'd be cheaper, you could do that and make it 5-3 again. But she's not here to vote, so I don't know.
Just a quick thought. If I change my mind to a no, would I kill the project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Yep.
Would I still have any friends on Marla Lane?
We'll have to ask that to the other folks.
That's a huge amount of money for us for
Mhm.
We're not using
not
the
enough
street
bang for the
much.
buck, so to speak.
Mhm.
I'm
You know,
gonna be very honest with you folks. I'm on the fence right now to changing my vote.
It's an interesting question from a rules of order perspective that, you know, if one of the yes votes were to change to a no vote, that would kill the project. But then would folks want to reconsider the frontage versus equal shares question, since two of the first 2 who voted said they didn't care either way. So
Exactly.
you know, it's an interesting question of how much do you want the project to move forward for those who do want the project. I mean, I'm not sure how, you know, how much the sort of Rogers rules of order apply to the resident vote. I don't think they really do, but I'm just throwing it out there that I think as a committee, we need to vote in a very orderly fashion, but I think as a neighborhood, if you feel that there should be more discussion before you come to your final conclusion.
This project was first presented to us way back. Just, back of the envelope type stuff. All I heard over and over was, yeah, we'll just break it up 8 ways. Well, at that point, they weren't even sure that we would be assessed anything because we were a Lowell Street address. And then eventually it says, yeah, we'll just divvy it up 8 ways. And then it evolved to us carrying the load.
Well, I mean, if you were to
And I-
vote no, I'm sorry, Elena, you go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I have to make a point also that we were brought into the vote when we were just to be signed at the document that says, let's go ahead and do this. So, and now we're taking the biggest amount on frontage and we don't use the street. So I
But
want
we-
everybody to consider this.
Well, can you hear me?
If we could
Yes.
hire somebody to come down and fix it.
I remember when I brought this to everybody, I thought everybody's frontage was pretty much the same within 10 feet. And it occurred to me when I see these numbers, there's a big difference between 60 feet and 20 feet as far as thousands of dollars. I even thought the corner houses were the same as everybody on the street. I'm surprised at the amount of frontage everyone has. Yes, I know Julio and Marisol just happened to see this recently, but it was twice that I tried to bring this to Julio's attention, and last time was no one was home. So we went ahead because it's a majority rule. As I said, and Dick says the same thing. I know I'm speaking for Dick, but he feels the same way I do. There's only $500 difference for us to go equal shares to save the people on the ends, thousands and thousands of dollars. But we're also increasing by $4,400 the ones in the middle. I think if you have any doubts and you want to change your votes and you want to vote no, that's fine. I'll still help you shovel snow. I don't care. Whatever you think, it's a majority rule. We've lived this long without it. That's fine. I don't care one way or the other. I brought it up because I thought it would be something nice. Because the road is kind of breaking apart. But, and you all agreed. But like I say, now we're talking real money. And there's a lot of us who are retired here. And we got the same amount.
And we
every
have, and we
month
have
as-
others that have kids that are gonna go to college soon.
Yeah. So
Why don't we vote again on frontage?
okay.
Go around a second time, because I
All
think,
Why don't we vote again on the vote?
Let's want to vote again on the first of all, if we accept it or not.
Yes, something.
Okay.
That's $4,400.
Oh, it's talking.
Call us off in the roll.
So
I just want to point out Chris, before you take
Yeah.
the roll, the $5,000 difference, it's actually less than $5,000 difference for the 4 addresses, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It comes out to $250 a year if it's 5,000 even, and it's actually a little bit less. So, you're looking at maybe $230, $240 a year for the project over the 20-year lifespan. That being the difference if it goes equal shares versus frontage. So
Okay.
$12,000
Thank you.
difference to me and
Well, that's over 20
Yeah.
years.
yeah.
You know, $12,000 and $14,000 more than the people at the end are paying when they're the ones who use the road. That's hard to take.
Yeah.
That's really hard to take.
Yeah.
Vote no.
I heard that.
I think you're in an interesting predicament right now as to whether you vote yes or no on the project first or vote.
Just
about
vote
the-
so we can have dinner.
I would suggest, I would suggest that you vote again on the frontage question and then take a final vote on yes or no on the project, understanding both the vote on the frontage and the vote on the time frame for
Okay.
the.
Okay.
Sounds
so we're
good.
gonna take a revote right now on the frontage versus equal shares, correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure
Chris.
everyone's following. Okay,
Hang on
so
a second, Chris. Vote it this way. Yay or nay for the project first. Start with
Okay.
that.
I think the trouble with that, Joe, is that
Right.
then they're voting not knowing what they would be spending on the project. I think if you take the frontage versus equal shares vote first,
I agree
everyone's
with you,
voting yes or
Alita.
no on the project based on what their share of the cost would be.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yep.
okay, so
I'll withdraw my comment.
that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna take a vote. This is to vote on frontage versus equal shares, okay? So let's take a roll call vote. 5 Marla Lane,
Equal shares.
okay? 6 Marla Lane,
equal shares.
Changed.
okay? 7 Marla Lane,
Who shares?
equal,
Yes, equal shares.
okay? 8 Marla Lane, Marla Lane, are you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to get there.
Sure.
Okay.
We can hear you.
I'd like to go with frontage, but I'll go with frontage.
Okay. 9 Marla Lane,
I'm gonna go with equal shares. Everybody uses this street, period, for something.
okay.
Actually, I have a problem with that too. The non-residents that use the street.
And I'm the ones paying more, but what difference does it make? We all use the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
10's not here.
10's not here, so that's, oh, okay.
Yep.
And 494 Lowell Street
Equal.
Equal, yeah.
and 500 Lowell Street.
Equal.
Well, I got 6-1, with number 10 being out. Is that a no vote? Or a front?
We didn't count it before. I think they're not here to vote either way. So
I got a 5-1 vote, right?
1, 2, 3,
6.
6-1?
six. I got 6-1.
Okay, right. Okay, that's the other one.
6-1. Yep.
Absent.
Okay. So equal shares. Now, we'll take a roll call vote for yes or no for the project. Okay? 5 Marla Lane, yes or no?
Yes.
6 Marla Lane,
Yes.
okay.
I'm gonna say no.
What was that other, Eric, you took my screen away.
Oh, sorry.
7.
I should know the numbers by now, but, 7 Marla Lane, yes or no?
7 Marla Lane, no.
Okay.
8 Marla Lane,
8 Mile Lane, no.
Okay.
9 Marla Lane,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, 10 Marla Lane's not here, 494 Lowell Street.
Yes.
And 500 Lowell Street.
That would be a no.
Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4 to. So we are at a deadlock of 4-4.
Oh, boy.
We don't have majority, so it doesn't move.
Oh, because the one not here counts as a vote?
We assumed them as a no. Because they're not here to vote yes or no, so it's more conservative. If they wanted to be here to vote for it, I would assume they'd show up and vote for it, or contact us to vote for it.
That's Betty.
And so they get a vote for sure because they are,
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think we could say that they're a yes vote. I mean, if we pulled them aside, it'd be 4-3 with them not, I mean, they know about the meeting. They chose not to be here or to contact us, so. They know about it. They could have emailed us. They could have let us know.
Oh, Eric, just, and to be fair, that's our neighbor Betty Williams who received the same information I did. That we all did. I shared with her the last email that you sent that clarified that not being present would be counted as a no vote in the roll call. She was aware of that. So, I just want to make sure it's not characterized as a matter of not being involved or interested or, very interested, very concerned, very involved. And she knew that that would be the rule for tonight and she was comfortable with that.
Thank you for
all
that.
right. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank
Because
you.
she still lives on the street and we still want her opinion too, So that's a note, that's a deadlock, so that doesn't carry.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
If you choose to come back next year, discuss it down the road. I mean, there's other opportunities to, if you want to, if some of the folks that wanted to move forward wanted to just fund it themselves, they could do that too. So, but that would be something that you'd have to discuss, and reapply to us as a different approach. So.
Okay.
All right.
I will make a comment to the neighbors. I do appreciate a lot of neighborly tendencies that you all showed towards each other. You don't see that often, whether you agreed or not. Some people, $5,000's a lot of money to a lot of people, and I understand that. $5,000's a lot to me. So I do appreciate you all respecting each other throughout the meeting. It's very appreciated here.
Yeah, I want to second that too, because I attend a lot of public meetings and this was a very, very civil conversation and very neighborly conversation, which is nice to see.
I think you really need to talk it out. And I think it was going a little fast, and by slowing it down a little bit, people thought about it. And I respect everybody's vote. I'll still be here with you.
There you go.
Well, we thank everybody for their time.
Thank
One
you
last
for your
thing.
time with this. Thank you, Eric, for all the work you put into it.
No problem.
And, thank you very much for having this meeting with us.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And Jim, you too, especially.
Wow.
Thank you.
Not a problem. We were going to name it Merino Lane, but I didn't want to get into that
I heard that's my
Eric, did you have anything else you needed to add to it, or?
Yeah, just one last thing. If you guys end up talking like this summer or something, and you guys decide you want to approach this again in the future, like Bill said, maybe next year or whatnot, I would say, we can start the whole process over again. We'd probably do a similar thing with like a petition, and that way we know that everybody kind of wants to look at this again as opposed to just one resident. And it doesn't mean that this is dead forever. It's just, maybe it's just, moved along to a future date if you guys decide you want to do something else, or, maybe you decide, we don't need this as much or that as much, maybe we could, reapproach it again down the road in the future if that's what you guys want to do. So if it's completely up to the residents on the street.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still there. Shift.
They're signing off.
Shift. Command.
What are you doing?
Okay. Number 4 on our agenda tonight. I should say, do we have any other discussions that we need about that subject? Joe, Eric? Bill?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want to maybe consider for a future meeting to discuss the process. Maybe we can, I don't know if we consider this to be successful or not today, but I don't think there's any real requirement on how we handle this. This is our current policy and how we do it. So, the key is to get it on, the warrant. That's the key. So we can look into that to see if there's some ideas on how to, maybe streamline this a little bit more. So it's not as meeting intensive here today. And some of that work's done a little bit beforehand, maybe. That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, everyone worked hard on this. Eric, I know, and I'm sure Bill, you did too. I mean, I know there was a lot of work put into this. So, much appreciated. And at the end of the day, all the neighbors being able to speak and, give their point of view is very important to me. And I'm sure it's important to everyone else on this board. It really is. And especially when you're making a financial decision like that. So
of course,
glad we got to speak it out. And obviously, I'd be open to any more suggestions. Maybe Elena, you might have done some meetings in Melrose a little differently in the past or something, but any suggestions would be fine. But I had no problems with tonight.
Good. Terrific. All right.
Okay, so number 4, warrant articles. Joe, is that your subject?
This is it. We'll update the board on a couple of goings on. Bill is going to share a quick PowerPoint that we put together. Essentially, we have 5 short lists this year for town meeting. We have 5 warrant articles. 2 of them you hear every year, eminent domain and the refuse and recycling budget. We're also asking the advisory board to recommend some drainage improvements that we've identified. Bill will talk to you a little bit about the quiet zone improvements and a contingency plan there. And then lastly, we'll talk about replacing the water storage tank on Harts Hill. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Bill because this starts with drainage and Broadway.
That it does. So I'll try to be brief, folks, because obviously we'll respect everyone's time tonight. So our first piece is a drainage complaint that we received back in the fall of 21 between 201 and 203 Vernon Street. So you see a couple of the photos in the bottom one. I believe you can see my cursor, correct? So this basically was what it looked like prior to the erosion. And then what happened was the system was overwhelmed and we ended up with essentially a waterfall going in between, going in between the two driveways between the lots. So what we did is we took a look at essentially what was going on with the watershed and what was causing it. Essentially, this is the watershed that gets to this star point. The star is basically the area in between the 2 driveways. So a pretty large area that extends all the way up to Pleasant Street and Sweets Street, eventually gets down to Vernon Street in this area. We found we have a small 12-inch pipe that goes across the road in this section. We also found that most of this area was doesn't even meet a 5-year design storm. So we look to actually increase the size of the piping through a few of the streets. So in White Circle, we're looking to improve from what's an existing 18-inch to a 24-inch, and that would extend down Vernon Street to essentially the intersection of Wave Ave. And then from there, we would upsize the 12-inch to a 30-inch and carry that 30-inch down to where Delano Lane connects to the drainage system. And then the blue and green sections, basically from Delano's drainage to the outfall near Daniel Road, would be a 36-inch pipe. Our price for that, to do all that work, is about $475,000. And so that's the first piece of our townwide drainage improvement plan we're looking to do. Second piece is further down on Vernon Street at the intersection of Cordis. And what we have in that section is a existing corrugated metal pipe that's been squished. You can kind of see how it all flattens out as the flow goes through the manhole. Our plan is basically, we have no other issues for the rest of the run. This is the only corrugated metal section. The rest of it's all concrete. So we would upgrade this small section to a new 24-inch RCP. Again, typically we look at all of the drainage improvements that are needed prior to going in and bidding our roads program. So Vernon Street will be on next year's roads program. So we want to get all this drainage work done prior to us paving. Cost for that small section is about $25,000. We have some manhole work, and it's a pretty deep excavation with a couple of utilities in there. So that's why the price is so high. And then the third piece here is actually to support the roads program. So prior to paving any roadway, like I said, we look at drainage as well as all utilities in it. And what we've been running is essentially paying that out of our roads program funds for any upgrades. So you can see we had pretty minimal improvements back in 2020. We were only doing about a little over a mile before we went with the road bond. And we had about $45,000 worth of work. 21, we increased to about 2.5, and we had about $260,000 worth of funds that we needed to spend for drainage. In 22, we're planning to bid this over 2 phases, and we're looking at a sizable amount of road, so close to 6 miles of road. And we're finding that we're almost about a $400,000 need for improvements in drainage. So the proposal is to recommend a $400,000 nugget to be paid towards the roads program. So in totality, all 3 of those equal the $900,000 that we're recommending. Number 2 is our quiet zone. As you recall, we had some issues with some train horns a little while back. So this proposal is to actually maintain our current quiet zone. So this started way back in November of 2020 when we were notified by the FRA that we can't reopen the Broadway crossing after some work was going on there by National Grid. We did a bunch of submittals back in December of 2020, which extended through a few different submittals. And essentially in May, we were looking at, we got a response from FRA that looked at the calculations of 4 of our 6 crossings. While Broadway was the highlighted route, the quiet zone works for all of the crossings throughout the town. So it's not just Broadway, it's all of these work in totality with the different improvements that we do at each crossing. With the ones that they disagreed with, we were able to come up with a consensus proposal to improve, to basically recategorize the improvement or the risk index that we were getting for the Prospect Street intersection. We added in some improvements with a mountable median for about 100 feet over by Greenwood, which was installed, and then obviously the Broadway medians that were installed, and some improvements to one of the driveways that were there, which allowed us to take some additional credits. What that did is got us just below the threshold. And when I say just below, we're talking 1 accident at any of these locations would put us back in non-compliance. So obviously, as part of that, we were looking at what we would need to do to advance, other improvements at locations. So the proposal that we're looking for right now is to install quad gates at 2 intersections, and that's what the request is. $2 million of improvements, and we've identified a couple of potential other funding sources. So the motion would be moved at town meeting to either accept existing grant funds or to borrow $2 million to install these. So we've requested earmarks from our federal delegation through the current transportation bond bill. And then we've also applied for CRISI grants, so Consolidated Rail and Infrastructure and Safety Improvements. So both of those applications are in. We're waiting to see what happens on both fronts. If we don't get any funding for the earmarks or the grant, then we would move forward with a full bonding. The big thing though is that I want to start with the design component of it as soon as possible. So that I want to be designing this within the spring, through the summer, so that I can get consensus with MBTA to get this moving, hopefully by next year for construction. So that's the goal. Joe, I think you're going to jump in on Harts Hill water storage.
The next recommended article that we have is to actually fund the design and replacement to replace our water storage tank on the top of Harts Hill. So basically what this slide is really just a snapshot. And the tank is essentially coming up on the centennial mark. It's made out of bolted steel. And it is something I don't think was ever intended to last 100 years. And even though it is in relatively good shape, we are playing with a little bit of fire the longer we let this go without thinking about replacing it. So some of the questions we get is, what is the purpose of this? What does it do? Really quickly, this probably speaks to you, Elena, the most. Chris, stop me if none of this makes sense, but this tank is something that provides stabilization to our hydraulic grade line. This tank is actually the focal point for our control points for our MWRA connections. So based on the level of this tank, opens and closes different valving we have to pull water from the authority. It equalizes our product from the treatment plant, also under fire flow condition. Gives us a little bit of buffering capacity in the event that we have demand fluctuations. And then this tank essentially, for the most part, functions as like the expansion tank in a residential home heating system. So it provides surge relief to the upland and lowland areas should we have a velocity change. So what will end up happening is if we have an area that is having a water leak, and a good example is on New Year's Eve when Church Street and North Ave suffered that break there. While that's going on, this tank will start to draw down to keep the pressure up in town so people don't go dry. So the recommendation for this to completely design, do all the document prep and construction services is to borrow $5 million. The new tank will be a combination of fiberglass fused bolted steel. So basically what that is it's a steel tank bolted in a similar fashion with a fiberglass shell on the outside and a fiberglass shell on the inside. This is basically going to be an out-of-the-box kit, which is pretty close in diameter and height to the tank that exists there now. Pick up about 40,000 gallons of storage. This is something, if we bond this, we'll be able to do it within the rate structure, and we don't anticipate that this is going to cause a rate increase based on the timing of how our debt is structured right now. So Bill, can you flip on to the next one, please?
Oh, sorry. There we go. Yep.
Next up.
Sorry, I didn't know you were going to the next one. Question
No,
for you, Joe. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
This tank, how many gallons does this hold?
The current one is 640,000.
So I know it's getting up there in age. If this was to fail, let's put it that way. If this was to fail and let go, I mean, we're talking all that water is going in, slip and slide down Harts Hill.
Trying to be proactive to avoid it. But
something to think about though, that water would do a lot of damage.
Oh yeah.
One of the other things we did before we even started getting to this point, we actually did as much due diligence as we could. We did a mini feasibility study to see if can we do system enhancements that render this tank unneeded and if we could abandon it. And the amount of funding and the amount of projects that we would need to do to be able to counteract what this tank does wouldn't be sustainable. It certainly wouldn't be sustainable within the water enterprise, and it would be a massive dent into the town's coffers to accomplish that. So we basically came with the conclusion that in-kind replacement was really the only situation that we had that we could make work.
Okay, and this, how it's structured with the town wouldn't affect the ratepayers?
Worst case scenario right now, based on the projections that we have for borrowing, you're looking at potential of $70,000 in new debt coming in fiscal '24. I'm going to ask that the council consider maybe applying a little bit of the ARPA funding to this so that this project can come in completely budget neutral. I won't have a good idea of that though until we go out to market and bond for the actual money. Assuming that interest rates don't creep over 4%, we should be able to get this pretty darn close to budget neutral.
Okay, thanks for the answers.
You're welcome. So you can flip to the next one. So refuse and recycling, this is just our annual refuse budget. It's pretty meat and potatoes. The budget is up $92,000 and change from last year. You could see the biggest increase in the top section there is for recycling collection. This is actually the first full year of the contract that we executed, the contract we put together with JRM. If you remember, they carried the same price for additional 9 months to line the contracts up with the fiscal year related to recycling. And then if you also remember, we renewed the trash budget at the same time. And in doing that, we ended up saving $25,780. So you'll see the yard waste, the refuse and yard waste collection, that increase for that service is actually only up $6,200 and change. Outside of that, the 3% increase on the disposal of refuse, gravel processing and brush disposal is everything related to Nahat Street. That was all level funded for the year. To the excitement of some of our town councilors, this budget also includes an expanded day and more days operating at the Nahat Street Yard Waste site. So we'll be open on Saturdays, every Saturday, the second and fourth Sunday. We open after every leaf collection, and we will also have a bunch of bonus days built in there to make sure that the surge times of the year we're open and ready. Sadly, in this, the education program, I know, Elena, you probably remember that being in the school. Barbara, one of the women that put on the little enrichment program, actually retired, and she's not doing it anymore. And we're still kind of coming out of COVID and not exactly sure how comfortable the schools are, having the entire third grade in every building crammed into the gym to sing songs about recycling. So that isn't funded this year. We're trying to come up with something to come up in that place to really keep the kids engaged.
That was a terrific program, so I hope it does get reinstated someday.
I loved it. I actually went as far to see if Steve, the guitar player, was interested in seeing if he could do something, but
I wonder if can the Environmental Sustainability Committee help you with that? Maybe they have someone that could help with the program.
We'll come up with something, whether it's a poster contest or there'll be something. It was just, short timing from when she said she was going to retire.
Yeah,
to
that's
put it
tough.
together. Lastly, just while I'm talking about this, so if you look at the bottom of this spreadsheet column, fiscal 23, we actually show a tonnage offset of $100,000. So what that is if you look, and I apologize, it's not in this, but when we present this to the council, if you look at the trend lines for the last 5 years of recycling and refuse, you'll see that the trend line for refuse is headed in the right direction and the tonnage is actually starting to drop. And conversely to that, recycling on the increase. Combined with the initiative to implement the bulk fee for items that are $20 and the tonnage drop, we feel that there's $100,000 there that we don't need to plan for from the tax levy. That'll save some money in this budget. That's kind of the cost breakdown of that right there. So while we're on the topic, did anybody have any questions related to the refuse and recycling? You want to move on? Councilor Dombrowski, you can jump in here too. You're more than welcome.
Director Conway, my understanding is that this is going to be the most expansive schedule the pit has had in recent history, right?
I believe so. I don't know when they put the hours on that they've had, but it should be pretty regular. The only days it will not be open are holidays or some other conflict like that. But pretty much from April 1st to December 1st, and then a little bit on from there if the weather decides to cooperate. We're open and willing to take.
And I know it's an obvious answer, Joe, but with these expanded hours and stuff, we do have a Wakefield DPW, worker there at all times, right? Someone's always there.
There's 2 at all times, yes.
Okay, good.
And then on Wednesdays, there's 1 gentleman, but it's a business day for us, so our staff's in and out there all day long.
I just want to make sure no one's going in there like after hours dumping stuff or, not dumping stuff they should.
No, it's all green and returned back into usable product.
And I certainly saw an increase in use too with those expanding hours during, COVID driving around and stuff. I think a lot of people did appreciate it.
Certainly.
I think it's a tremendous value add for the community. So I thank you guys for supporting it because I think it's really important and people appreciate it.
Next slide, please. So last, but certainly not least, is our annual eminent domain article. Bill found this great little picture of what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. So if you can think of it, we want the little blue water main to exist, but for that to be able to exist over privately owned property, we need to have an easement. This article just basically allows us to take those easements for the purpose of utilities. I can't think of any of these that have ever gone through, at least in my time here, that have been one-sided. They're always usually mutually beneficial and a partnership between the abutter and the town. Think of it kind of like the Broadway article. It says break glass in case of emergency. That's something we do every year just to make sure it's fair case. And with all that said, that is all of your warrant article recommendations for this year's town meeting.
Are we
So-
voting on those
I
tonight?
was just gonna ask.
So, yes, so the requested vote would be to recommend the advancement of these warrant articles to the town council for inclusion on the warrant.
So I will make a motion to advance these articles to the town meeting warrant with a
Second.
recommendation, with an affirmative recommendation from our committee.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you.
And we can do that. Can we do that for all of them or do we have to do these individuals? I should have asked that, sorry.
You're recommending these for advancement to the town council as presented, correct?
Yep,
I think we're okay.
okay. Okay, next, new business. Anything new going on?
Ooh, geez. So certainly, all of this that you see in front of you is what's going on in the background. The weather is starting to cooperate, so we're cautiously optimistic that spring may actually be around the corner. I'm hesitant to get too excited yet, though, until I see it consistently. And it's most of the same old roads program. Eric is actually putting together a pretty big water main bid that'll be headed out pretty soon. So we're gonna be busy getting back to basics, putting pipe in the ground and starting to make improvements. I don't know, Ann, maybe if you have anything on your front, not to put you on the spot, but.
No, we're almost to the end of our Black Earth bins. We have 2 left. So we've done 198. People now take advantage of the Black Earth pickup. We're starting to try to work with some apartment buildings in case they want to do it. Black Earth's willing to either do small buckets or one large one for a community toter. So that's exciting. We're actually working on getting the elementary schools back on the Black Earth pickup. There have been some issues with who can get into the school and helpers. So that's been a little bit of a struggle. If we can't get it off now, we will, our goal will be to get it to going September 1st.
Great.
Chris, I just want to let you know, I'm getting hounded by Melrose because I was supposed to be on a 7 PM city council meeting.
You're
And they're now texting me incessantly, like, where are you? We're ready. Where are you? We're ready. So, and I know when I leave, there's no quorum on this meeting, so.
Yeah, feel free to take off. No problem here.
Well, I
Okay.
don't know
Adjourn.
if we have, I think we have to formally make a motion to adjourn while
Yeah,
I'm still on, but,
there's nothing else from anyone else.
okay. And I hate to rush our meeting to a close. I never expected that we would be up against the 2-hour mark, so.
This one was a doozy tonight. It's okay. We
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
a lot done tonight.
It was a good one, though.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, I don't have anything else unless anybody else does. Next meeting, do you want to look at next month, or you want to send something out? Doesn't matter to me.
Do you want us, we could reach out and maybe hit you up with a couple of dates. So this is, we obviously have tonight. I have to be back here tomorrow and Wednesday, and then next week we go in front of the council and the finance committee. So depending on how long that process goes, I'll shoot you up some dates when things start to settle down a little bit.
Great. And thank you, Councilor Dombrowski, for joining us tonight. I think might be the first time I've seen a town councilor in 2 years, so it was
Yeah.
nice to see somebody.
As DPW liaison, I just wanted to just make sure I'm accessible for you guys too. So by all means, reach out. And I mean, I feel like I speak to especially Joe and Bill on a regular basis. So
We appreciate it.
I'm tuned in.
Well, if there's no other business, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
What time is it?
7.
Motion to adjourn at 7:16. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. All
Motion
right.
carries 2-0.